So what's facing all of us in 2023? For a little help with that, we have senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong and Nisha Patel. It has been a year, you two, where we have been triaging all these crises that have been coming our way. Inflation, interest rates, housing crises. And it's been hard to step back. So can you do that for us now? Peter, can give us a sense of what might be coming in terms of the recession we might already be in?
Yeah, look, I think in a lot of ways, 2023 is going to be like a mirror image of 2022. 2022 started great. The economy was booming. Everything went well. And then it slowed considerably into the second half of the year. We're going to see the mirror image of that in 2023. A really slow, constricted economy through the beginning of the year. And then things start to get their act together and move into a quite strong end of the year. So, are we looking at a recession? Yeah, probably. The Bank of Canada is saying 0. So what's the difference between a 0.1% growth and a 0.1% decline? Not very much for me and you, but it's technically a recession if you get that over 2 quarters. So, they say it's going to be short and they say it's going to be mild. And you and I have talked about this a few times now, that it doesn't take much to nudge that into being something way worse and way longer and way deeper. But that's what they say it's going to be. And if that's the case, we should see a recovery in the middle of the year and everything sort of coming back online and getting just the economy back to normal and back on track and back to kind of where we expected things to be going through the course of this year.
Is that you looking at a recession as not a negative, as actually a potentially good thing?
Look, I think that's a good question. And any recession of any kind, when it sweeps into your sector of the economy, is terrible. Mm-hmm. It's going to mean jobs will be lost. It means businesses will suffer. It's going to be awful for the people that have to go through it, but there will be a bunch of sectors that will go through it without so much pain. And remember, we have such a strong labor market right now that we've got a bit of cushion. We've got so many people working so much and frankly, too tight of a labor market for the Bank of Canada and for policymakers that there is a bit of cushion there for sure.
So it's interesting, Nisha, to hear Peter talk about layoffs, because we've spent so much time talking about where are the workers? Where is everybody? What happens to the balance of power if we're facing it? Layoffs?
Well, this is the thing about 2022. It really felt like the year of the worker. We saw increased interest in unions. Starbucks is unionizing. We saw a lot of strikes for better worker pay. And so a lot of these employees really had the power this year looking for more wages, looking for flexibility, and they were able to get that. We're seeing 1 in 10 Canadians have a hybrid work option right now. So they had the power this year. But as we move into an economy that is a little bit more precarious, the balance of power could shift. And so the big question this year is, can they hold on to that power, those hard-fought gains, or will employers be able to say, this is a tough economy, you're out of luck if you're asking for this kind of thing?
Right, so we're only going to keep X number of employees. We'll keep the ones who are coming to work, and the ones who aren't, bye-bye.
You bet.
Okay, so that has been a preoccupation, sort of where and how we work, but so has where we live. What's coming in terms of housing? Because it still feels out of reach, even though some prices are down. Rents are still skyrocketing.
Yeah, we know we're in a downturn. The big question is, how much further do prices have to go? Prices are down 10% from the peak we saw in February. The big thing coming up is there's going to be a wave of homeowners who have to renegotiate their mortgage costs. They were paying 2%, now they're going to be paying 6%. And so in this era of higher interest rates, will they be able to hang on, kind of push through this period? Or are we going to start seeing some distress selling, and how will that affect prices? Affordability is still a big question, and that is seeing a lot more people start to rent. So we're seeing Canada kind of becoming maybe a renter nation. And the big national conversation right now is going to be, do we need to build supply just for renters? What are the policies? What are the incentives that we need that will help that environment?
I think a whole bunch of people would say yes to that. They would also be asking about the cost of living. Is there any hope? I keep going to you and I fear doom when I do, but is there any hope on the horizon in terms of the cost of living?
You say I only come here with bad news.
I do.
And Adrienne, I'm here to prove you wrong. Look, I think we're seeing progress. And drivers sure know it. I looked up the price of gas. The cheapest gas you could buy in Ontario today was in Markham, Ontario at $1.21 a litre. That's way down from where it was. And that's a real solution to the cost of living for a ton of people. We're not talking about food here. That's still going up and it's going to cause a problem. But look, the inflation is coming under control. It isn't under control yet. It's still too high, and that's why the Bank of Canada is still sort of saying it needs to move to try to get that back and rein it in. But we are seeing progress. If you look, you know, the Bank of Canada splices these numbers up and parses them 1,000 ways from Sunday, but the median numbers, the trim numbers, the core numbers are all showing progress. The 3, the 6, the 9-month numbers are all showing prices starting to come back down. And as you know, we talked about that recession. As we get into a recession and demand falls, we'll see balance restored to prices and demand. And so you'll see some of that getting more under control, and it will free up the hands of a lot of governments, federal, provincial, municipal, to try to help people out in a crisis. Right now, there's only so much they can do because they don't want to exacerbate inflation. As it gets under control, they can take more measures. As the economy begins to sort of emerge from, as I say, that lousy first half of the year, we'll begin to see some progress. But look, around everywhere you look, you're seeing some small measures of progress, and don't lose sight of that.
Okay, I'm going to hold you to that. Very quickly, last whip around. Let's imagine it's the first week of January and you're looking at what's coming. What are you going to be focusing on?
I don't know. I think the thing to look for is what we're not looking for. Look at the pandemic and the supply chain problems that came. Look at the war in Ukraine and how it affected food prices. This is all stuff that we didn't really see coming, but had a huge impact on the economy. So I'm going to be looking for any kind of hint about some kind of black swan event. I think today's numbers about Canadian debt levels are really important to watch. That could make the Canadian economy really vulnerable. We're seeing so many more Canadians rely on credit cards as they try to get through this period of high inflation. So that is what we're going to be looking for, and you'll hear it here first, if I know.
I like it. You're a newsie, the black swan event. We always look for those. Peter, last word to you very briefly.
Look, I think look at what's doing well. The Canadian energy sector is doing incredibly well. International trade is going very well. But then I also look for how is that going to come off the rails, right? Like we saw trade issues becoming a major problem for the economy leading up to the pandemic. That kind of put everything on hold. What's it going to be like when we emerge from this and trade gets back as we sort of saw it before? That'll be the interesting thing for me to watch.
All right, Peter Armstrong, Nisha Patel, as always, great to see you. Thank you.
You bet.
Thanks.